Bam. So here we are. Team Early as Fuck podcast. Skye, you can curse on here if you'd like, just so you're aware. Just getting that out of the way
Okay.
early. This is another remote podcast. It's currently April 22nd. COVID craziness. But turkey season has been going on, luckily, to save us all. Skye and I both had the first week. She's a much nicer person and was helping out other people, and I was just selfish. But here we are on the podcast. My guest, Skye Goode. Skye, can you say hello to everyone, who you are, what you do for work or in the outdoor space, and then let's dive into turkey season. We'll start there, and then we'll circle back.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Bill. My name is Skye Goode, and I am going to be 31 pretty soon. And I live in Neilsville, which is in central Wisconsin. And yeah, by day, I'm a mental health case manager. So I went to UW Stout for psychology, and I really like mental health and alcohol and drug abuse, profession. So I've been doing that for quite a while. But by night, I'm a trapper, hunter. I don't know. I just like anything in the outdoors. So if there's a season that's open, I'm usually pursuing it. So,
I like it.
and yeah, turkey season is just start. Like I took a youth out for the youth season, but we had that blizzard, so that kind of didn't even seem to happen. So this first week was uneventful. The birds are acting like it's October. Like it's just not. Like I like spring turkey hunting for the gobbling, strutting, fighting, purring, clucking, like all the excitement. So this flocked up like group of winter bird hunting isn't really my thing. So
Yeah, if I wanted to do this, I would have taken the dog with. And fall turkey hunting with a dog is way more fun than fall
yeah,
turkey hunting in the spring without a dog.
yeah.
Definitely. So going back to the mental, like you work in mental health, you're super passionate about it. How does that fit into, or how does outdoor life fit into that? What does that
Mm.
relationship look like for yourself?
Oh man, I don't think we have enough time today, but any type of mental health or AODA, I'm convinced can be cured by the outdoors. Um, when it comes to depression, anxiety, or even just life trauma like divorce or different types of addictions. I mean, if you just go back to it, everything I really think can be cured by the outdoors, but a lot of people don't have that opportunity, or they don't maybe try or have the motivation. But if I think of every major life event I've ever had, the best therapy is definitely in the woods. And I know that's kind of like a cliche that we always say, like, this is my therapy or whatever, but it's really true.
I
And what I love about my job is I work with both kids and adults. And adults, they're always just doing their own thing. So yeah, maybe we might meet in more of a clinical setting, but the kids I get to take outside, and like their mentoring session, like earlier this week, I took a 9-year-old boy out to, I found a paint turtle crossing the road when I was on the way to his house. So I picked it up and I thought, I'm going to show this kid this turtle. Because I don't know if he's ever seen a turtle, which I was right. He never has seen a turtle.
what?
And we walked through the woods to this pond and released it. And you should have seen the excitement about everything from the goose poop on the ground to like the mud puddle with tadpoles in it, and then releasing the turtle and the claws and everything. So like that seemed like it was the best day that he had all week. And so I really try to incorporate the outdoors as much as I'm legally and able to, liability wise. I can't take anyone out hunting or anything like that, but we try to get out in the woods as much as possible.
I like it. I love it. So for everyone listening, that was we're jumping into the deep side of the pool, which is awesome. I love doing that. I want to bring it back for just a brief second to a couple things you said, and then, but even before that. So I met Skye originally on Instagram. I randomly found you, searching just like trapping or blah 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 blah, and out of boredom one day, and I'm like, who the hell is this crazy person? Barefoot all the time. Like, I love barefoot season, but some of the places you go barefoot, I would never go barefoot. So kudos to
Yeah.
you. You're hardcore. And then you were at the Wisconsin Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Rendezvous, talking about trapping, furs, all that good stuff. Because you just, I think, I don't know if it's your mental health background or you're just cool as shit, but your approach to delivering that info is so much better than the traditional white guy way of delivering it. Like, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my
Yep.
favorite people are old white guy trappers. I would put my dad
Mm-hmm.
up into that category. But if he's teaching trapping to anyone but me who understands like his craziness, he does a really bad job of it. So
Yeah.
I felt, because you had such a variety of people surrounding you for each of those talks. Like, it wasn't just old white guys. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I met you, and learn more about like the mental health stuff. You don't necessarily do a lot of talking about that on your social media, but I know it's a part of it, and just from a few of the conversations you and I have had, I knew that was a part of it. Can you?
Yep. I don't often. Two things I don't often put on social media is my real job and my kids, because the animal rights activists, they'll go quiet for a 6 month period, and then boom, Ricky Gervais or someone will, and then I'll have hundreds of thousands of death threats and like doxing me and all that stuff. So I really try to not put out there my employer or the specifics of
Yeah.
it, and then my kids I don't put a lot on. So I mean, I'm kind of an open book like in podcasts and stuff like this, but I'm not gonna make it super easy for people to just, you know, I don't know,
Yeah. No.
because they go on those tangents, you know.
It's. I forget the last one. It was one of the schools you went to, and I saw everything that blew
Yep.
up from that. I'm like, how and where is this coming from? All this anger and stuff towards you,
Yep.
who's you're just sharing a love, a passion, and a knowledge of something that people have been doing for as long as we've had civilization, and
Yeah.
you're explaining it in a way where we can benefit from it. So I guess with that intro, I want to go back to the mental health in the outdoors part. So you mentioned, like it is a cliche thing. A lot of us say that I'm in fitness and I love the outdoors. So I'm telling people, just go outside, you'll love it. And a lot of, you work with adults, I work with adults. They struggle because they've never been exposed to the outdoors. They've never had a leader or someone they love show them all of the cool things to do outside. So they think there's only a couple things, and they don't know how to do those things, right? The barrier to entry is high because they've never been shown how to do
Yep.
those things. For you, especially, I guess we can go adult or youth, where does your coaching, your leadership, your thoughts on all the outdoor equality thing, where does that come? Where are you as a leader in the
Like
outdoor space?
where did I learn everything from? Or
Yes, both. So where did I? Yeah, that's a
oh,
good way to answer it. Ask the question. Where did you
yeah.
learn what you know from, and then where does that piece into how you teach others?
Well, so my mom actually was quite a tomboy and grew up with two older brothers who trapped and hunted, and she was one of seven. But the other sisters were all girly, and she was kind of the tomboy. So um, I mean, she really taught me almost everything about hunting and fishing and the outdoors. Trapping, I got into kind of on my own. Like my uncles and cousin did some muskrat and coon trapping and stuff, but the trapping part I got into on my own. But it was really my mom, like out of necessity, because there wasn't daycare and I had no siblings or anything. So I was in the woods from the time I could walk with her, whether she liked it or not. It wasn't always like a good mentoring bonding experience. You know, sometimes it was like she was annoyed that I was too loud or whatever. But
Yeah.
still, when I think of all the foundation that I have as a hunter and an outdoorsman is from her bringing me in the woods when I was little and learning all these things that maybe if you and I took out like a 30-year-old that wanted to get into hunting, they have that learning curve to learn all that thing about wind direction and whatever that I learned in single digit ages, you know. So I really kind of owe a lot to her in that regard. Um, you know, and then of course I just grew up in like poor Clark County where I mean we hunted and fished and everything on a necessity for meat and everything. So that's kind of how I learned everything. And so now when I bring people out in the woods with me, I mean, it depends on their level, but the most fundamental things like leaf identification or track identification, or like I said, wind direction, or even knowing which way is north, is like a concept that we grew up with, and the average person doesn't know. Or you ask someone, where does the sun set, and they don't know, and it's like that like I don't know. That blows my mind how disconnected people are from the outdoors right now. So if we look at like a leadership, I'm not going in there being like, a real complex. I'm like, okay, this is west. We're gonna go this way because our center, like it's just very like basic, but they still like, especially the kids I take out now, they love to go to a mud puddle or like a sandy area and say like, here's deer tracks and here's coon tracks, and they'll say like 5 different deer tracks, like here's a deer and here's more deer and here's more deer, and they just feel like a woodsman just by identifying the deer tracks. So
Oh, I still do that. Like some of my
yeah.
favorite spots are muddy. Like I'm like mud, yes. And then I'm just
I'm obsessed with tracks. I don't know.
yeah.
I think it's because the animal was there, and if it's a fresh track, that animal, like nothing else can make the track but that animal.
Yep.
And it was there just not too long ago, and now you're there. And that's like when I see like bear tracks, it's like you feel like this, like a bear was just here. It's kind of a cool. I don't know. I'm obsessed with it.
No, agreed. First day out turkey hunting, I did very little turkey hunting, and it was like all these other cool things that I would like. Spring was like finally here, and
Yep.
one of them was like I find these fresh bear tracks in the snow. I'm like, that's so cool, and I'm like
Yep.
measuring it to my boot, my hand, and then I like pick my head up, look a little further. I'm like, oh, there were 2 other small sets of bear tracks, and I'm like, I'm really happy I wasn't here when this bear came through, because that's just one of my like running into a female black bear with cubs in the spring. I'm like, she's hungry, she's hangry, she's got 2 annoying brats with her. She's probably probably
Any
not.
one of us. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah, that's what I love about tracks, is like piecing together the story. Like, like when you see like I've seen in the snow where there's deer tracks, and then like the raking from its antlers where it went in the snow browsing, and you can see the tracks from
yep,
the antlers, or like you'll see squirrel tracks on a log and then bobcat tracks. You're like, like just putting together the story is such a fun thing to do too.
definitely, I love it. So there's the storytelling, the identification of it. You're talking about making it basic, making it fun. Definitely, I think from your stories for people, I think that's a missing component. I know I've struggled with that in the past, and I'm trying to do a better job of that when we're talking about like the R3 movement of, as hunters, fishers, trapping especially is a difficult one. I know living in Stevens Point, it's definitely more, there's a strong outdoor emphasis or passion,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of it comes from more of an urban setting. So people, like when I talk about trapping, people are like, oh, how can you trap? And oh my gosh, you take your dog with you, like Django, like aren't you afraid of him getting in a trap? And it's like, well, no, not, or at least not any of the ones I set or that are ethically set. Like I'm not worried about his life for any of those. But it's this bigger conversation. As people who are passionate about these pastimes, we need to talk about, educate people, starting basic, share storytelling. So it's cool to hear kind of your emphasis and how you go about doing that. So we've got the there were a couple other things I wanted to we're going to do a side tangent here. I heard you mention the words tomboy and outdoorsman as you were talking about yourself.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on those as a badass female leader in the outdoor space?
I can't stand the whole pink camo movement. I can't stand huntress. I just can't. Like there's a traditional, like we don't need the extra attention seeking labels for women. Like if you want to be taken seriously and be equal, then just go with whatever vernacular we've been using for 100 years, because that like I get the reason for legalizing the pink camo to try to, but I don't know what, if you're passionate about the outdoors or actually wanting to learn to hunt, I don't think you're going to care what color you're wearing in the woods. It's kind of my thought on that. And luckily I've never met another female who was interested in the outdoors that was doing it superficially. I guess you see that more on Instagram or social media. Women posing with bows like without an arrow in it, and or whatever. I don't know. There's like ridiculous photo shoots out there, but in the real life, all the women that I've met that were doing maybe like the Learn to Hunt program or a Trapper's Ed class, they are so passionate for themselves. And I mean, it's most, equality as far as setting traps. Like I can set up to like a 220 barehanded. I can't do a 330. A guy's going to do a 330. Some more guys beaver trap, whatever. Like it's just kind of there's a legitimate physical difference between men and women. So there's really no reason to think that we're all equal across the board like that. But women at least have like more attention to detail. When I'm doing these trapping ed classes, when I have female students, they listen and take direction. The attention to detail is a lot more. They make a better set because they're more concerned about quality versus quantity, so they absorb all the information and put more detail in it. I've noticed guys are more like rammy, want to get it done. Like, I know what I'm doing. Don't give me instruction. And so, I mean, there's a little bit of difference there. But I'm never offended. I mean, every day I get some type of, I guess, gender related comment. Like, I kind of joke that I can get permission for just about anywhere if I ask, because I'm never taken seriously. I can't tell you the number of times I've asked to go, shed hunting, and I heard like, oh, go ahead, just, don't get lost out there or something like that, so whatever, like, okay. I don't get offended because I got permission and I'll just go. But there's a lot of times that I've gotten permission and then I kill 2, 3, 4 turkeys and then I don't get permission ever again. So yeah, I don't know. Use it to my advantage sometimes.
I think you were mentioning that with your coyote trapping spots. When I took your Trapper's Ed, you were like, yeah, after the 20th or whatever coyote you were talking about, they're like, hey, wait, I don't, maybe I would, they think it's easy or something, so they try to do it.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so I wanted to get your opinion on those. Because, so there's, really, or at least from my standpoint, I could be wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, but there's no right or wrong way to look at those or answer those as long as you're being genuine, right? Eventually, I mean, on social media, it is what it is. People can get away with being fake, just selling stuff, that's fine, but real world, if we're going to keep trapping, hunting, and fishing into the future, if we're going to be able to tell these stories, share the information with people, and help new people get into it, we need to be genuine and have these discussions about equality and verbiage. So like someone like yourself, you don't give a damn if someone calls you an outdoorsman or a tomboy, and you're perfectly fine with that, and you have your reasons. Someone else may or may not, like in the farming, for instance, I have plenty of female farmers that own their own farm, and they love the idea of being called a farmer. Like, put that H in there. Like, they've had too many shitty experiences with male farmers. They don't want to be lumped into it. So I just want to be respectful and mindful of that as we have these conversations and dive into hunting, trapping, the outdoor life. So thanks for...
I get it. Yeah. My personality is like, we have so much more to worry about. Like, if I, like I have a lot of clients that are transgender, and I will mix up pronouns, and I don't do it to offend them. And I'll be like, I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
Like, and they're usually like, cool, like, oh yeah, no big deal. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think I've ever truly been offended by, sometimes when I'm at conventions, like I'll work the Trappers convention, and after like the 2000th customer, I might be just kind of like hangry and annoyed by customer service all day. And so I'll hear some of those, I really don't like the assumption that I have a husband or boyfriend that takes me out hunting. Like that, I guess that phrase gets me kind of agitated. Like, no, I will take you out. Like, nobody takes me out, So, but yeah, for the most part, I'm not offended by anything.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to have these discussions, right? Making sure we're all becoming more open more these better lines of communication. Our language is so important in today's world with social media the way it is, with crazy groups attacking you, where as if you've ever met you in person, like, no, she's super cool human being, and the way you're super worried about ethics and how you're doing things. So
Very much so. Yeah, I remember my trap red instructor, who was the District 2 coordinator, Dave Lewis. I can remember every phrase that he uses. You know, when you teach a class over and over, you kind of repeat the same phrases, and he has so many good ones. But he says it's the one. All it takes is 1-3-30 set on dry land to get a senator's lab in it, and there goes trapping. And it's like, yeah, it just takes one trap. If you think of 20,000 trappers in the state, you know, 4.5 months of trapping. Some people run hundreds of traps. Just the wrong person setting a trap, maybe they didn't know, and it could just wipe out, you know, the entire sport or whatever. So you know, it's like your dad, like that generation, secret hush hush. Fur prices were an actual major part of their family's income, and they did not give any advice or knowledge or anything. It was completely secret, as if you were like, you know, gold mining or something. And so now it's like, well, fur is very low, and you know, with the animal rights and stuff, the more education, like, I don't want people to, if we're secretive, I don't want people to conjure up the wrong information in their head using their imaginations based off of those PETA posters with, they put a chicken bone and ketchup in a trap and they say that that mountain lion was in there for a week or whatever, or chewed their foot off or whatever they use, you know. And I want to, that's why I put my hand in my traps, and that's why I want to go to schools, and like, that's why I take so many pictures and videos on the trap line. The old timers will say you're doing that for likes or attention or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm proving that I can release badger, bear, bobcats, whatever, with no harm. You know, it's like, I don't want to leave anything up to the imagination when it comes to trapping because of the bad rap that it has. So.
yeah, definitely. And I appreciate that. I've used many of your videos in conversations with people who are anti-trapping. So
I need to make more.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I don't think about it at like 4 a.m. when I have a bobcat lunging at me, and I'm like, I gotta record this. So
I should make a video of this.
Yeah. I try as much as I can, though.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that you grew up, you know, outdoor life, hunting, fishing, that kind of thing. You got into trapping on your own. If we're continuing to talk about outdoor equality, so being born into an outdoor family is obviously like a big hurdle, right? If you're not born into it, that's a huge hurdle to overcome. So you had that, you were born into it, that part of it. What were some early things that you had to overcome to get into trapping, and how did you do them?
Oh boy.
Yeah, we're diving in.
I'm trying to think of I don't know. I mean, I can't think of any hurdles as far as like getting into trapping. I mean, access to land is probably the biggest thing. If a new trapper could choose to hunt or trap public their first year or trap private, I would tell them trap private as much as you can while you're learning, because then you don't have to deal with the whole slew of issues that come with trapping on public, you know. So if you have private land to maybe, you know, make some mistakes, because you will make mistakes. The regulation book is so thick and there are so many little dimensions and measurements and stuff to memorize that you will make mistakes, even if you had the best trapper ed instructor ever. So, I mean, that's kind of the biggest hurdle, is if you don't have access to private and you're trying to get into trapping, it might be a little off-putting to deal with all the other recreational things that are on public in October, November, December. But other than that, I can't think of any barriers, because the trapping community is so welcoming, and like, I mean, just everything from wanting you to be part of the Wisconsin Trappers Association, come to our conventions, come to our district meetings, come along on the trap line. Do you need help skinning? Do you need help? Like, they're just such a welcoming community that I don't think if someone reached out, they wouldn't be struggling, you know, because anybody right now with the generations that we have, and even the old timers are way more accepting, like, please come along, because they know that they don't want to take this information to their grave, you know, they want to pass it along. So yeah, new trappers, I think, would be the most supported outdoorsmen that of any of the industries we have in the outdoors. I think trapping would be the most supported by old timers. So
I like it. There, you especially the regulations one. For me, that was so. This what would I be technically like third or fourth generation? For me, it was as I got more into it, well, knowing I wanted to do it on my own as I got older, realizing like some of the things I had been exposed to growing up may or may not be legal. so,
yep, yep.
so realizing that and then looking at the regs, looking at, I mean, you and Jim and Mike were huge on this at the trapping thing was like, there's what's legal in the book and then there's what's ethical for you as a person, as an outdoors person. Making that connection. So for me, that's been the huge one the last few years, and I really appreciate the way it was done. And like you said, the older generations, the old timers, they're so open about sharing like how to do things well, where to go, get information, get traps, what's working, what's not working. Yeah, I think trapping as an outdoor pursuit is pretty amazing. And what I what I tell people about that, it's been hit and miss. So we've got catch and release in fishing, right? Like that's so many people like I don't understand it because if I'm putting all that money and energy into fishing, I damn well want to eat it.
Nope.
So there's that. There's for hunting, I've brought people hunting just to have the exposure with the animal. We don't kill anything. Like maybe they're not comfortable seeing death, so we don't kill anything. There's not like catch and release hunting yet, even though I'm thinking about taking people out with nets and my dog and we net birds and then we let them go, see what that's like. But for trapping, you could still do all of it and then let it go, right? There's like live trapping I've done with people for nuisance trapping, and you know like you could just let this thing go. I mean, I'm gonna probably take it and eat it, so that was my payment for doing the trapping for you. But you could learn about it, the history, the tradition, the skills. You could get outside. It's great exercise if you're walking a trap line.
Yeah.
And then letting it go, kind of like your video show. Like you're letting these animals go and they're not being injured. So trying to get more people open to the continuing the tradition of trapping.
And just changing some of the stigma, because I always hear, and that's why I don't post a lot of trapping related stuff in the hunting communities, like the bow hunting groups or whatever, because even though like waterfowlers and deer hunters, they should all be thanking a trapper because it's all this big circle. I always hear the phrase, well, why do you let it suffer? Why do you take a picture or video? Just dispatch the thing. And I'm like, but your concept of it suffering is the problem. It's not suffering. There's no suffrage happening like in the 30 seconds it takes to record a picture or video for the greater good of education. Like there's no suffering happening, so I don't need to release it of some kind of misery that you're thinking that it has. Yeah, it's a wild animal, it's struggling, it's scared, but it's no different than, you know, a deer almost getting hit on the highway. We don't stop driving because that deer was scared for a few moments, you know. Or when you flush a grouse, it's terrified, but you don't stop hunting because you might scare an animal up out of its bed. You know, it's kind of, I don't know. We put way too much emotion into like a very like innate instinctual thing that none of us would be here if we didn't have trapping as a foundation for the United States.
Yep. Agreed. So that's a conversation. I love that the way you put that. That's I've had here in Stevens Point when people are questioning trapping, why it's done. You know, the suffering part of it. And I explained to them, it's no different than you hiking or snowshoeing out to where deer are yarded up, and you're like, oh, those deer, and you like go in there and you want to like take pictures of them, see what they're doing, or you're disturbing. Like that's the same thing. Like as a suffering standpoint, like that animal should be preserved, like conserving as much energy as possible. And there you are, getting after it for pictures. It's got to run away, potentially starving, blah 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 blah. So the way you said it, like crushed it. We've removed ourselves so much as a species from like natural selection or natural pain, discomfort, death. Yeah, trapping. I know for myself, like it's definitely confronted ideas or beliefs I've had about discomfort, life, circles of life. It's also made me realize how easy it would be to trap me. Dispatching some mice from my garage with like classic peanut butter in a trap, and I'm like, you could totally do this with
Yep.
something in my own front yard if you got
Yep.
ingenious and you're like, haha, put
Yep.
this.
I think that all the time, like when I'm going into work in the winter and I'll see like where people walk over the snowbank and there's like a circle where everybody's blueprint. And I'm like, if I put a trap there, I would blind set and catch everybody that, it's like we're creatures of habit. Yeah.
Yep, so much so. All right, so we got that out of the way. I'm digging it. We've kind of hinted at the R3 idea. So we've got recruitment, retention, reactivation. Recruitment of new hunters, new outdoors people. You could think of it as children. Retention of people that are currently doing it, and then reactivation of discontinued users, be it from age, injury, blah 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 blah. You're into like all of that. Like you said, you're working with youth. You're educating people at the Wisconsin level for the state and trapping. We'll jump into these individually. So for you, why is R3 important?
I think just because, obviously all this ends if there's nobody continuing it. But the last one, the last R, as far as like, that's what I think is the most common. I hear it all the time. I trapped as a kid and now I want to get back into it now that I'm retired, or, like that kind of thing. Or even like, when you talk about like Lauren, that, Lauren and I trapped together. He used to like, and he still does, but he used to trap and hunt and do everything, before his accident. And so then obviously getting back out on the landscape in a wheelchair has a whole slew of other accessibility stuff. But he would be one of those that like discontinued for a short time. And then, so now you have a girl and a disabled person trapping together. So the amount of people that are like, well, if a girl can do it, I can do it. If a guy in a wheelchair could do it, I could do it. So it's like, we'll like use those labels if it helps other people at least have an open mind that they're willing to try it again,
Yeah, I like it. So the idea that we want to continue this legacy, that's awesome for R3. Let's dive into recruitment specifically. So as a educator for, what is it, for the DNR and for Wisconsin trappers? Is that
yeah, it's the Wisconsin Cooperative Trapper Education Program. So the DNR and the WTA together make up the WCTE.
Okay, so you've got their recruitment there, and then as a mother, what does recruitment look like for you? Why is it important?
Well, like my boys have, it's amazing that at ages 3 and 9, they've experienced up close more animals than anyone else could even imagine. Like, for my 3-year-old to have already released how many badgers, or like my 9-year-old, I pulled him out of school this winter to help me release a bobcat. Like, they've experienced so much more that they almost take for granted, that they don't realize that all the other kids in their class haven't been up close to a wolf before or whatever. But
I'm
it's
jealous.
so important because like we were saying though, like if you're not born in the family, like just trying to start out sometimes is really difficult. And with trapping being so saturated with information, even like, so the next generations are going to be 100% internet. I grew up at least until age maybe, I don't know, 18, where we didn't really use the internet for anything. We still use encyclopedias, and then we have the internet. But all the next generation not going to use, the peer-reviewed type literature. It's going to be just YouTube. And when you look out there, Wisconsin regulations are unlike any other state. So if a kid is watching a YouTube video from down in Georgia where they can put traps all over a deer carcass and catch whatever comes in, they're going to do that wrong here, or a 330 on dry land or whatever. So for me, the recruitment piece is so important because there's nothing like hands-on in-person learning. Before the whole COVID thing, even, some people wanted to make trappers at 100% online. And like you did the, I don't know if you did the mail-in or the online course, but then we had the test out requirement. And I am so big on, I love the internet, social media, all that, but I'm one that says we should absolutely not have it 100% online, because there's too many things like entanglement, site exposed bait, recession, all these words that doesn't make any sense to a brand new trapper, let alone a 12-year-old, you know. So as far as the recruitment goes, there is like a happy medium between internet usage, but then also the importance of being in person. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And having even been exposed to trapping, it was good for me to see and hear all of those terms, because my education was like the backwoods YouTube version, right? It was just like, oh, this shit had worked, let's do that, and then no, that kind of thing. So it was good to have it in person with you, Mike, and Jim. I did the online and then the on-site.
Yep.
I forget.
And Curtis was there.
Oh yeah,
too.
Curtis was there. I forget who I said.
How do we forget Curtis?
Yeah, I don't know how we forgot Curtis, but the damn DNR. I like to throw that in every episode.
Busy planting those wolves out there,
Yeah, he was rattlesnakes for the turkeys, and then wolves. But I forget who I corresponded with, because I was such an asshole. I did all of the online stuff like overnight. I was just super busy with work. So I sent it all to him. I'm like, I'm going to show up tomorrow and do this, because I remember you had messaged me about it. And he like sends me back an email. He's like, I'm going to grade this, but if I ever see you in person, you owe me a beer.
That would be Mike Widner. He's the correspondence instructor. He's a retired history teacher, or maybe he's a biology teacher. I don't remember, but he's a retired teacher.
Yeah.
And he's very like by the book, and that's why he's the best person for the job. So I can see him being very annoyed that you procrastinated until the night before.
As soon as I emailed and I got that response, I was like, this guy's a teacher, and teachers hated me growing up. Like, teachers and I we've never meshed in a student teacher power dynamic. So I instantly got that. I'm like, if he saw me in person right now, he would punch me in the face. But no, it was good. I should have gave him more heads up. I apologize to Mike for that. But no, it was good. It was a great program. I highly recommend it to everyone watching or listening. So we've got recruitment out of the way. Retention. So for yourself, for others, for trapping, what does that look like?
Well, success. I mean, you take a kid out fishing for the first time. If you don't get a single bite, they don't ever want to go fishing again, probably, right? This kid that I took out turkey hunting this week, we still had a little bit of gobbling, like way off in the distance in another state. But like, if you sit there for 7 days and no gobbling, you don't see a turkey and just nothing. Like, so, success is like we can't pretend like just being out there is rewarding. Like, yes, I get that, but come on, like we all want to succeed. That's why you're out there, you have these goals and you want to reach those. So I think, as like us as leaders that are trying to do the R3 and keep those people interested, we got to make sure we do everything to succeed, taking them, I don't know, to sweet spots, or making good decisions, or really prepping them, like saying like, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to do this, this, and this, and pointing out everything, like look at the deer in the field and look at these bear traps, and like just making it the most rewarding experience. Because if it's just boring and lame, especially when you look at kids, they're not going to want to do it again, So I think success is probably the biggest part of it.
I like that. Definitely. Success is huge. And I know for myself, so I kind of born into the outdoor life, or whatever you want to call it. I got to a point where culture was like what pushed me away, right? So much of who I was exposed to at an early age, I just got tired of it. I joke about like the damn DNR, and my friends that are wardens, every once in a while, if I see someone post something, I take a screen grab of it and I send it to them like, yeah, you're such an asshole. Like,
Nope. Yep.
I gotta keep it going. But I realize now like how silly and uninformed so many of those opinions are. But at the time I was young, and I didn't realize I could disassociate. Well, and you really can't, right? You don't have the power to disassociate from that world, from those people, from those thoughts. So it
Hmm.
pushed me away. Like it drove me to the point where like I just don't want to go with you. Like I don't want to be
Yep.
out there. I don't want to be exposed to it.
Yep.
So for me, culture, like when I think about retention in the outdoor space, so much of it for me is culture. Like who do I hang out with personally? Who do I want to go hunting with? Like
Hmm.
Wisconsin, we have a higher percentage of hunters, and I know quite a few. But who would I actually want to go? Boots on the ground, go turkey hunting with the
Hmm.
spring. So that's something I'm thinking about too when someone asks to go with or someone wants to learn more is what kind of, and we've been talking about this whole episode, but what kind of culture do I want to share with them? Do I want
Yeah.
to talk about and expose to or share with people when we're talking about hunting and trapping? I don't know
Hmm.
what your thoughts are on the idea of
Well,
culture.
and that's exactly it, because like us, if we're gonna take a brand new outdoorsman or a youth, you gotta make it fun. I didn't take a kid out on Sunday when we had the 9 inches snow of blizzard. I didn't take him out turkey hunting. It'd be cold, miserable, exhausting. You wouldn't see anything. I don't make a kid sit for 8 hours in a tree stand. It's like a couple hours max. Like you got to make it fun. When I was a kid, like I said, my mom took me out of necessity in the coldest conditions. I was miserable. In August, we'd be out shooting carp in 102-degree temperatures, no shade trees around. And it was like miserable. And we had to be there all day. And just some of the worst conditions you can think of. And during my teenage years, when I was just, rebellious adolescent, I think I hunted like the 9-day gun season. I didn't do anything else. It was like hunting stupid. I don't want to go fishing. That's a waste of my time. But like because it was embedded in my roots and my foundation as a kid, I returned back to it when I was done with adolescence. So I always tell parents, like, yeah, your 13-year-old girl maybe doesn't want to go bow hunting with you anymore. Not a big deal. Like she will someday. But I think like the retention part, like you said, the culture of don't have high expectations, don't make it super competitive, like have fun with it. Um, like my mom would just, if I stepped on a stick the wrong way as we were like, I got yelled at, right? Like, don't move, be quiet, blah, blah, blah. When we're fishing, like if I got anywhere near the pole, like, don't touch it, don't throw rocks in the water. And so now as a mom, like I take time to, yeah, keep that, beat it against the tree, get that energy out. Or yeah, let's go throw rocks in the creek. Or, you got to take those breaks so that it's still fun while they're learning all that. Or like you said, the culture, like nobody's gonna want to like go with you or do that again because they're gonna have kind of sour, bitter memories about it.
I think probably for most people listening or watching too, the when you were talking about like stepping on a stick, my dad was yeah same hour long cold sits. Uh, I grew up. We had like 8 beagles, 6 to 8 beagles at any given time, running on rabbits. The hikes he would take me for not enjoyable
Yeah.
at all. And I think of like he and I go hunting now. We're like wood duck hunting. He's constantly fidgeting. He's like we
Yeah.
turkey hunting will be set up waiting, and I'll just hear him like crinkle open this like the loudest bag of chips you could possibly find, and I'm like, who are you and what is going? Why do I have to have this? Like it's so funny the role reversals, and then
Yeah, they mellow out in their older age, and that's kind of how we got to get to like for example, like smoking in the tree stand. Like the old timers, like they all just like have a cigarette. It's not a big deal, and we're all like putting all of our scent
yep,
blocker, whatever in the totes, and oh,
yep,
crazy.
it's interesting. So I like it. Those are fun stories. So then we've got reactivation, and you kind of talked about this a little bit with Lauren. For me, I'm always thinking about like fitness. I hear people all the time. I used to bow hunt. I don't anymore. I didn't do anything all off season, and I went out. I couldn't draw my bow back, or I did something to my shoulder, or I'm not fit enough to do X out in the woods. So then they stop doing it. And those are all things within our control we can be incorporating into our daily lives to kind of make those things possible. The story you have and you and Lauren have is like way more intense than that, right? It's an accident where our gifts that we have, these awesome things that we're able to do, are taken from us not through inactivity on our part, but through just like crazy events. Can you explain? We should have Lauren here. I don't want to speak for him, but can you kind of explain a little bit about that scenario, and then what does reactivation look like and why it's
Sure.
important?
Yeah, so I first met him not too long after he had a car accident, and he broke like the C6, C7, so he's considered a quadriplegic, but I mean, he can do everything except for walk. Like he's far beyond recovery of what his injury level normally would be for the average person. But I first met him not too long after, and we started talking about turkey hunting, and he really wanted to go turkey hunting in the spring, but he was, after that kind of life change, he didn't really realize what he was capable of. And he, kind of said, like, I used to love to turkey hunt, but I probably won't anymore or whatever. And I was like, well, why don't we just go? Like, I'll help you with whatever you need. I'll carry decoys, I'll set them up or whatever. And we went on that first turkey hunt, and it was like so amazing because, like, well, strength wise at the time, like, he didn't really have a lot of like hand or arm strength or whatever. So even holding the shotgun up for a little bit, he was kind of like nervous that he wouldn't be able to hold it up long enough or whatever. But then he killed the first bird, and he was just so excited and happy. And he's like, he had realized, like, you're not an invalid. Like, you just happen to use a wheelchair. You're the same hunter. You still have all the same knowledge and experience and instincts that you had before. And it was almost like it awakened that sleeping outdoorsman inside him because he's been dealing with, a complete transition through paralysis for a few years before that. And it was just so amazing to see how his fire was lit. And so then ever since then, it's been like 3 years. I mean, he's just an amazing hunter. He's killed more bucks than we've ever even seen. Like, and just everything. And then trapping, he's completely embraced trapping. And if you've seen the pictures and stuff, like for him to be out there, like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like he's just gonna like fall out of his chair. He's just like so like ingrained in setting his traps and stuff. And I don't know, it's just like the cliche, like he's a total inspiration, but he really is. So
I love it.
He's a perfect example of the last R, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's if we're gonna keep this going, people like him who, cliche inspiration or whatever, just the overall grit and the fire he brings. I love watching the posts and reading the stories when you share kind of what was going on behind the scenes, and because that's big. Like, I love that too. Like, that's the big thing on social media, comparing blah 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 blah, creating these stories, right? Like some people do about like what you post, and it's not fair. For me, I look at that and I'm like, I want to know what's going on behind the scenes, because he's posting these like grip and grins. I want to know how the hell he got into that position, because like the cherries in and all the other shit he's had to overcome, and then here I am complaining like, oh, I've got a blister because I was a dumbass and didn't put 2 pairs of socks on. It's
and if you like, we joke that we should have like our own TV show or something, because when we go hunting, it's never just smooth. Like it could be something like the battery on the chair, we didn't think to plug it in, or I can't even think of the number of things. It's never smooth, but it's always an adventure, and the added challenge to the hunt reignited my fire too, because you kind of get complacent with, okay, we set the decoys out and we shoot a bird, and it's like he just adds, and he probably wouldn't think this, like he probably wouldn't glorify all the difficulties that like you and I don't need to think ahead 35 different steps on a hunt, and he does. He needs to play out getting in and out of the vehicle, what he's going to do with the gun, how he's going to get to the spot. Like there's just so many other things he has to think ahead of. And he just, I don't know, that I can't even convey the like determination and the everything that he has to deal with. I can say shit, right? You said I could.
Yeah, you could definitely
all the shit every single day that he has to, and you wouldn't even know, because it doesn't even faze him. He's just so excited about life and positive all the time. I don't know, pretty amazing.
I love it. I don't watch any hunting shows. I would watch the shit out of a hunting show with the two of you. I feel like that'd be fantastic.
Oh God, I know. Maybe I'll just start recording more, because it's just, it is such an adventure. It really is.
I love it. All right, so we're closing in on an hour. I want to be respectful of your time. One of the last things I want to cover before I ask you if you want to touch on anything else is being a businesswoman in the outdoors. So you have your own business. You're combining your love and passion of trapping, the fur trade, which is like as old as time, and then how to hand stitch outdoor wear. So for me, a thing I like to talk about in the outdoor space, hunting specifically, is this idea of consumerism and micro trash in general, right? We see it all the time. Oh, to be a great hunter or fisher or trapper, you need this X thing, right? This new thing, the
Oh yeah.
gear, the camo patterns, like all this shit where people are constantly buying new stuff when the old stuff was just fine. Like look at what people were using 40 years ago to hunt with and sit in the cold with. Like you don't really need this new thing every year. Or the idea, so like micro trash from, so the gear getting thrown out, or the supplement craze in hunting. We don't need to get on that, but like instant coffees, all this stuff that just ends up in the landfills. For me, the idea of fur outdoor gear, something that I'm going to have made, preferably I trapped it myself. I had someone local or someone I know make it. I'm going to have that thing forever, right? Like it's going to
Hmm.
outlast me. Hopefully it's something I can pass on to someone else. How did you get into that? We need to dive into that story. And why make it a business?
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know. Like the first thing I ever sewed was I found a roadkill red fox, and actually a friend kind of helped me like make it into a headband, and then I would buy like Walmart hats or whatever, like and just like rip them apart and kind of look at what the pattern looked like and find stuff online and just trial and error, like different sizing and stuff. So people always ask, like, can you share your pattern? And I'm like, no, like I worked really hard to like make that. No, I'm not just gonna share that. That's the one thing I guess I do keep secret. But um yeah, the hand stitching part, I hear at least once a week, why don't you buy a fur sewing machine? And I'm like, because everybody has a fur sewing machine. You can't get anything handmade, truly handmade. So yeah, every single stitch I use a needle and thread. And yes, it's more time consuming. Yes, it hurts my hands, but the product I make is not going to rip apart or fall apart. It is the most like the best quality craftsmanship you can possibly get. And I'm not buzzing through a sewing machine and not really looking at the quality, you know. So that's really important to me. Of course, the renewability, biodegradable, sustainability part of it. You know, it's not a petroleum product. Like it's natural, you know, leather and fur, and it would um, degrade over time. You know, if you were to throw it outside, and I think there is studies where they did that with fur products. And then also like most of the animals that we sew are predators themselves. This is their camouflage. So obviously in Wisconsin during deer season, if you're going to wear a hat, it has to be orange. But I will always wear like fur and then put my orange over top. Or I make like fur like booties, like socks basically in the deer season. I put them over my toes, and it's warmer than any synthetic material you could possibly imagine. Um, and so we need that. If you want to like be successful in late season bow or whatever, or you know, ice fishing, even like wearing real fur. If nobody's actually tried real fur before, they'll be completely amazed at just how warm and keeping out the wind and the moisture and everything. But it's also another reason to trap is so I can have the excuse of needing to get more fur for the business or whatever. Also, then that's why I like to do the school presentations. When someone touches fur, they're automatically connected with nature. So those kids come through the table and they're putting their fingers on all those pelts and they're feeling like, oh, the beaver is really shiny and the fox is really fluffy and this muskrat is really smooth, and like they're just connecting with animals that they might never see. And then you put that garment on someone's head and it's keeping them warm and secure, which makes them happy. And I just feel like there's almost a psychology behind it, that it's kind of like connecting them to nature even if they're sitting on the couch, you know.
Oh, definitely. I couldn't agree more. That's awesome. So, and I've got, for everyone listening or watching, I just sent Skye a raccoon. That was an incidental trapping this winter. I was nuisance trapping. We were trying to get some possums out of someone. They were like burrowing under their garage,
Mm.
And I go out there, and there's this huge raccoon stuffed inside this full body, like a live trap. I'm like, how did you even fit? Like, it didn't make, like, his fur was sticking out the sides of it. It didn't make sense that he had gotten in there. But I'm like, that's going to be a great hat.
Yeah.
So I appreciate him waking up in the middle of winter to go check out
I
what
will get that too. It's turkey season, so I'm going to be a little distracted. But
there.
you don't like you don't need it. It's going to be hot out soon, so I'll get on that.
I got
soon.
it to you, so yeah, you could work on it whenever you. But yeah, I messaged you. I'm like, I foresee no reason I'm gonna need that for a long time. I'll be perfectly fine. I just want to get it to you before I did something else, or the wiener dog ate it. She was they dropped off that package, and she was very interested in ripping open the box to find out what was in it.
That's the one thing. I guarantee the life of a hat, except when a dog gets it. I cannot tell you the number of people that will leave their hats out and just to come home and it's just shredded. Dogs love fur. They just wanna. I don't know what's wrong with them.
Yeah. Well, they're like, this is a live animal. I'm gonna play hunt, kill, or whatever. No, awesome. So, Skye, is there anything you want to conclude with, finish with? I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, no, I just as far as R3 goes, I know Curtis is working on getting a women's only learn to trap camp set up for this fall. Awesome. And they're just working out the details for like marketing before we can actually post it out. I think it'll be at Mead Wildlife area. I don't quite know all the details, but I know I'm supposed to be the lead instructor. So hopefully I'll know the details when that happens. But it's a weekend of women's only real trapping, like setting the traps, harvesting them the next day, skinning, and then making like garments. I'll have already tanned stuff, cooking the meat and all that. So it's going to be really awesome for that part of it. Nice. And then I just put in another trapping, a spring hearing resolution that I'm hoping was voted in for disabled trapping permits. So if you see that in the next year or two, I'm hoping people will support that so that we can get more people with disabilities out trapping. So those are like two little soapbox things I have.
Bam. What was the name of that? What was the name of the resolution?
I just called it like disabled trapping permit. So I just put in the resolution on this spring hearing. Mm-hmm. And so if enough people in my county voted on it, I believe it'll be on the questionnaire next spring. Yeah. I think is how that works. So the way the regs are written for bobcat, fisher, and otter, the person with the tag is supposed to actually set and place the trap, which like after trapping with Lauren is like irritating because we have to pass up like 50 different spots that he can't access because it's like a foot out of his reach. So if you want to be legal, we have to like go find other spots. So I'm like, why don't we just make it so that a person can assist someone with disabilities so they don't have to try to reach down into a creek to set the trap. I mean, come on, Yep. I think maybe nobody's just thought about it. So I'm just hoping that maybe there could be like, because we have disabled hunting permits that give them exceptions to the rule, but we have nothing for trapping.
Oh, perfect. I love it. Definitely vote for that and give it support. Right in. That's by my quarantine homework is doing more written letters for outdoor specific things I want to see supported from our representatives. And then Barefoot Furs, I've got it up on the Facebook page here. Barefoot Furs. I also got a Q&A you did for Outdoor Life back in the day. And then Wisconsin Trappers Association, I've got that up on here as well for people listening or watching from home. But Skye, thanks for coming on. Everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool. You're welcome. Everyone else, see you later.